Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday. For those who don't know me, my name is Christy Taylor. I am the Senior Director for Talent Initiatives at the Detroit Regional Chamber. I sit on our education and talent team that's working to increase access to post-secondary education for both traditional age students and adults in the Detroit region. My role is focused on helping employers play a more active role in developing talent and supporting education initiatives here in the region to help them with retention, developing talent, and finding talent, which we know is a struggle for many of our business partners. Today, we are going to talk about a great source of talent, veterans who are transitioning back to civilian life and who just, could benefit from some support as they make that transition and pursue work or continued learning. So I'm going to stop talking. Before I do, I will just ask that everyone goes on mute because I think we can hear some background conversations. And just so you all know, we will send out a recording and some follow-up materials after this event. So be on the lookout for that. So I'm going to let our two speakers introduce themselves, starting with Christina. So we have somebody here from a business and then somebody here from education to talk about sort of both sides of these support structures. So I'll let Christina kick it off.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us and just hear our ideas and what we've been working on to support our veterans as they transition back to the civilian life. Again, my name is Christina O'Brien. I am from Ajax Paving Industries. We are a heavy highway road builder here in the state of Michigan, doing work all over the state as well as all over the country too as well. Veterans are near and dear to my heart. One on the personal side of things, my husband is airborne infantry with the Army, now serving soldiers who either have passed away through funeral operations or helping soldiers get promoted through the ranks and in that fashion out of the Fraser retention facility that they have. So veterans at home are near and dear to me, with my husband. On the professional side of things, back in August of 2023, we received the gold level veteran-friendly employer certification from the Michigan Veterans Association here. That just shows our dedication and a commitment to helping veterans become employed into the construction industry, as well as how we support them in their personal lives too as well. So we're very proud of that designation to be partnered with associations such as the Detroit Regional Chamber, colleges such as Macomb Community College, in those fashions to really, really help them transition back into the civilian world. So I will hand it over to Kara to introduce herself and tell us about Macomb Community College.
Thank you. Honored to share the stage with you. So this is super cool. So I'm Kara Fields. I'm the Director of Veteran and Military Services at Macomb Community College. I have been serving veterans in higher education for over 20 years. I started at a small business school and built veteran services there, and now I'm here at Macomb Community College. Always building, always changing our services based on our students' needs. We have about 1,500 military-connected students enrolled right now in our winter semester. So we're a large size population for the state of Michigan. Besides working at the college, I sit on a couple of boards behind the scenes. I sit with the education chair for the Macomb Veteran Action Collaborative, which works out of Macomb County. And then I am the co-chair of the Motor City Veteran Community Action Team, which both of those are pretty much groups that help people like us that work with veterans really understand the network behind the scenes and the supports that exist. So I take that pretty seriously in how I work with the students here. We get to know our students. We figure out what they need, and whether that's a connection at an employer, like somebody like Christina at Ajax, just to understand how I break into management in this type of industry, or whatever that is, we use those connections to really serve our students. And on a personal note, I'm really motivated for this work. I was raised by my great aunt. She was an Army MP, an Army military police in the 30s and 40s. She was a sergeant in the military. I didn't know what that meant. Many of you may not know what that means and why that's so cool. My student vets over the years have taught me why that's so cool, and have taught me, how difficult it was for women in the military, especially in the 30s and 40s, and to actually be in the MP and in the police roles, and actually being a cop in the military, not just a secretary or receptionist. So I've learned a lot from my students, and I hope to help them and to continue to help them. And I think I'm a firm believer that when you serve this population, it's about having a trusted network that you create and about the relationships that you build. So I hope that you do keep my contact information if I can ever help you with any of the things your veterans are dealing with, whether it's something wonderful and they just need a great resource to support it, or something kind of scary. Please let me be that friend for you, like I built a network. So.
Thank you both. We're going to dive into a few questions. Just so you all know the format, we do have some questions that we have, identified for both of our speakers to answer, but we want to hear from you and answer the questions that you have. So this will be a conversation. We don't have slides. We really want to hear from you and answer your questions. So you will see a question box on your Zoom panel. So as we're talking, please feel free to put in your questions as they come up, and we'll spend some time at the end making sure those get answered. But first, we have a few things that we want to talk about. Can you both just describe some of the challenges that veterans face just generally when transitioning back to civilian life, but also more specifically around accessing education and training opportunities and moving into careers?
Sure. So on the employer side of things, when soldiers are, coming off of active tour or, being formally discharged from the military, they difficulty one, just acclimating to civilian life, home. Now they have that permanent connection to home, they're not having to experience those separations as much. So getting acclimated on the family side of things, but on the employer side of things, it's more so the skills translation piece. How do they translate what they've been doing in the military if it's not like a direct correlation, to a supervisory type position, or, to a employee management, HR, or to a skill set specific. So like a cement mason in the military would translate to a cement mason with us. So what happens when they have those other skills that necessarily aren't that straight, one-to-one comparison with that? So a lot of the times that we've seen is that an individual with a military background will come to us and say, I'm not really sure what I want to be doing, what to expect out of, coming into a construction type trade, or what does that even mean? And so just breaking that down, because skilled trades for us has changed quite significantly just over the past 5 years, 10 years plus. So depending on how long that veteran has been in service working directly for the military can depend on, what they'd experienced before they went in compared to what they're experiencing now when they come out. That's one of the biggest things that we've seen on that side of helping with their skills translation. And then Kara, I can turn it over to you.
I think higher education can play a big part in that. I think we're still learning, to be really honest, when you talk about the skills translation. So I agree with that. I think also when you think about their transition, you think about the career, most people don't realize that they're career changers. It is rare. I work at a community college. I work in higher ed. It's not as common. I don't want to say it's rare, like it never happens, but it's not as common where somebody is a cop in the military and wants to be a cop in the civilian world. Now, a lot of those skills will translate into other areas of those industries, but you are really career changing, and it's tough, especially as an adult trying to figure out your career path when you feel like you should know that already. I'm X number of years old, right? I'm this adult. I've already done all these wonderful things in the military. Why do I not know what I want to do with the rest of my life? That's like a high school problem. And I think that's the tough part, is that this really is a career change. So thinking through that, you do need connections to those resources that really help you understand, back to the basics. What am I good at? And what do I like to do? And what do I hate to do? And what's that mean for jobs? And, I talk a lot about networks, and it's about really entering, taking those conversations, building those relationships with each veteran, and then really having them hopefully find somebody that's willing to do that, and then able to connect them to some of those resources. So schools that that are well equipped for that, and many in Michigan are, but schools like Macomb can do that really well. I think another challenge sometimes during this transition is the cultural norms are very different from military to civilian world. And the majority of the civilian world has no clue that military is a culture. So when we think about that, you think about, trying to find the jobs. Like, I think I want to be this because, it's just what I did in the military. And I love these pieces of it. Not just to find that the job's a little bit different in the civilian world, but then to find that there's no sense of connectedness. There's no unit, there's no belonging. Um, there's not somebody that really has your back, to be a little bit cheesy and say, I got your six, but that's real in the military. Like, I trust that the person next to me has my best interest at heart and supports me. And then here I am today, with a team that really barely even talks to one another. And, whatever it is, it's not the same. So that is really challenging as they're looking for that as well.
That's a great point, Kara. That's such a good point with that piece. I love that.
So Christina, Ajax was awarded a gold level veteran friendly employer designation. I hope I got that right.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit more about what that is, what it entails, and how other companies might pursue something like this?
Sure. So what that entails, the designation shows that the employer has certain policies, processes, and items in place to recruit and retain veteran employees as part of their employee base. So that starts from just simply identifying that on your application. And then from there, they track the retention. So how long are your veterans staying with you as an employer? And then what other veteran-friendly associations do you partner with, whether it's the Department of Labor apprenticeship programs and educational partnerships, as well as, are you partnering in other kind of youth building with the military too as well, starting in the school side of things as well. So initially getting involved with becoming a veteran-friendly employer starts out with, what are your basic processes? Are you identifying it? Obviously optional, because sometimes we have a lot of veterans who don't like to self-identify. So if they do, fantastic. But at least just having that on your application as part of that voluntary identification piece. And then from there, really being intentional about making sure that you're having those meetings with the veterans about what do they need. Because more and more as an employer, we're involved in their personal lives too, as well. As much as, a lot of people want to say, you got to leave your personal life at the door before you walk in here. That's not the case in the civilian side of things, is that, more and more are we becoming involved with what our employees need outside of work just as much as what they need inside of work. So with veterans, can add just a whole other assortment of items, whether, how Kara is speaking on the educational piece, I want to build upon these skills, or just, where do I live? Especially if they're coming out of it and they're single, or maybe they lost family while they were in service. So where do I live? How do I get a car? Like, I have my military ID, but I haven't had a license, and, however long it may be. So some basic things that we may take for granted on a day-to-day basis, a lot of our veterans struggle with too as well. So becoming this veteran-friendly employer, initially they want to know, okay, what are you doing to attract, recruit, and retain? But then as you move through the different levels, what are you doing to help support them as well too? The Michigan Veterans Agency website has a link that, we'll be sharing with you later on today that shows employers where to go. Okay, what do they have to, where do they start in a sense? What does the commitment look like? And the MVAA has a great support system to walk you through the process too. If you have any questions, if you need help or direction or anything like that, but also calls like this too as well. We're happy to answer any questions. Now that I've been through the process, our second year in a row, I'm more than happy to help answer any questions or provide direction there too as well.
Thank you. We're seeing this across the board that, in order to have successful talent development efforts and to just really have a productive workforce, you have to provide some of those wraparound supports and account for the other things they're dealing with, which I know is especially true for this population. So thank you for sharing that, and congratulations. That's a huge designation. Kara, what about on the education side? Is there something similar for education?
Yes, Michigan Veteran Affairs Agency, which we will shorthand to MVAA, probably moving forward. It's a little bit easier, but MVAA has done a great job in our state. They really stood up their current level of service. They started that back in like 2012, and probably about 8 or so years ago, they started veteran-friendly employer and veteran-friendly school programs. So Macomb has been gold level veteran-friendly for the entire program since the inception of it. So I'm super proud of that. I'm proud of the team here, and I'm really happy that we work with them, you know, to make sure we stay good at what we're doing, to make sure we're learning. I think the takeaway for most people here, whether you're education or whether you're an employer, MVAA really does rock. They do a fantastic job helping you figure out what the needs are for you, helping you set those expectations, helping you understand what those resources are, heck, even learn military culture if you don't have that at all in your background. They're just fantastic. So, and what is also really cool about being a part of this, even if you're not going to go in and be gold, you know, right at the beginning, think about starting off, even if it's at the bottom, you know, at a bronze level, start there and start with the network. You know, what's beautiful about that is they normally do like an annual event where employers get together with employers. So the bronze are hanging out with the gold, and you're learning from each other, and the golds are learning from the bronze too, people. And they do the same thing with education, where we get together and we can talk about the hot topics, the struggle buses that, you know, that our student vets are having or that we're having and serving them. So yeah, we're proud to be that school. We're proud to be in a, you know, in a room with folks like Christina and Ajax. We're really happy about that. And, you know, I always say it's less about the designation as much as the journey. And then also the learning that comes with it and the perpetual learning, so we can stay on top of it and serve this population right.
Continuing on that theme, can you talk a bit about prior learning assessment? And just, you know, for the folks not involved in education, what is that? What does it mean? And how is this especially applicable and relevant for veterans? And what are you doing at Macomb to support that?
Sure. I thought I would start out with this huge PowerPoint presentation showing you how to read a military transcript, also known as a JST, but I'm kidding. So instead, I think it makes a lot of sense to understand the bigger picture, right? So people, whether service members, are coming out of service and they have this wonderful learning. The military, regardless of branch, does a phenomenal job at training. Unfortunately, I'm being honest here, higher education has a harder time taking that military transcript and saying exactly what it means, right? So one of the best pieces of advice I can give is have the service member, as they're separating, get a copy of their own joint services transcript or military transcript, and really bring that to the school and start having a conversation. You know, at Macomb, what we do, like I mentioned earlier, we find that not every person that works in skilled trades in the military wants to be in skilled trades for a civilian career. Maybe their body's not going to hold up to it. That doesn't mean they don't want to manage in skilled trades. That doesn't mean they don't want to become an accountant, right? And totally shift gears. And maybe that industry is still comfortable for them. So it's about really looking at the full picture and helping, I think really helping them understand what that next career goal is. I know I already said they don't know necessarily that they're career changers, but it's admitting that, it's hugging that, it's saying, okay, now that I want to do this, what are my likes? I know I'm not a high school kid. I know, you know, I need to figure out what it is in the world I like, but then having that conversation with the school and possibly schools. So at Macomb, what we do is we try to do it one-on-one, right? We don't force our vets to come and talk to us about their military credits or history. But as they are talking about or thinking about submitting it, we start that conversation. And we start to say, okay, what did you actually do? You know, what was your job? It's also an MOS or a rate, depending on the branch you're in. So what's the job you did in the military? And from there, do you think you want to do that in the civilian world? Why not? Why do, you know, if you don't know, there's some resources. Like, let's figure out where you need to be. Let's figure out what that straight path is so that you waste zero time. You waste zero energy, you waste zero of your benefits. Let's figure out what that goal is. Let's start talking about that military transfer Let's sit you down with faculty. You know, if you were on a Navy ship and you did a lot with electronics, let's actually get you to the right folks in that part of the college so you can talk about what you did so you don't take anything you don't need to take. You get the credit you actually deserve in the right spots, not just where we think they should be, but what's going to help you to meet your goal. So it's very one-on-one. And then on top of that, we also will partner with their next institution. Somebody says, I want to go be a social worker. That's wonderful. You know, let's get you on that path towards that, and let's connect you to maybe that's Oakland University or Wayne State University or Central Michigan. Let's connect you to the point of contact at that school, and let's bring that JST to the table. Let's bring that military transfer to the table, and let's really do this as a partnership. So you're not, you know, maybe we don't want you to take principles of management, but they do. You know, it's so different. Each school looks at those things so differently. So the best advice I can give is tell them to open up. No question is dumb. Their unit can be their veteran services office at the college. At least it can start that way. They can try, and they can really start asking questions, and they can just come in and stare at us. And we'll start giving them information because a lot, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what to ask. So I think, you know, we look at most of our schools will get to know the student vets, and then we'll start to connect them to the right resource that they need. And education, every school you give that JST to is going to look at it differently. So it's about understanding what your end goal is and how that JST is a phenomenal tool for you in that tool belt and using it the best way. And if I can, maximizing your benefits along the way. Because realistically, I'm not going to get into the GI Bill saga here at all. But there are 7 different versions of the GI Bill. And, you know, and on top of all that, different versions of benefits and scholarships that are available. So I know I've served one of my vets right when I can help them to not use their GI Bill here at Macomb, look at scholarships, look at other things like that, so that when they get to their end goal, and that might be a master's degree, they've got the highest, most expensive part of their degree covered by their GI Bill, and they still didn't pay out of pocket here at Macomb, right? So I mean, that's again the military friendly standard, right? The veteran friendly standard. So we strive for that. Many of the schools do in the state of Michigan.
Thank you. That is great advice. What other advice do both of you have for employers who are, you know, looking to do a better job supporting veterans, developing education for their workers? What's your advice?
So for us here at Ajax, advice that we can give to employers is initially just starting with the time. All employers get so bogged down with, you know, a ton of different directions, tasks, focuses, depending on where your, you know, high point stressor points of the year are, but actually taking the time, dedicating that time to look at what is the best route for us to support either the current veterans that we have or to attract that talent. The next piece is your team. So getting a team involved internally and externally. So internally, if you have current veterans who want to be part of that team to help you build your program, lean on them. The biggest part that I've heard from veterans is they feel the most value added when they get out of service is when they're giving back to their fellow veterans, is the biggest reward that they have when they come home. So leaning on your team internally too, as well, getting them involved in the process, as well as externally. So as you know, Kara from Macomb and, you know, Christy with Detroit Regional and other MVAA contacts and just other things like that externally to start building that network. And figuring out where you want to start. The smallest piece, as Kara had mentioned, is the best. You got to take that first step, no matter what it looks like. And not every program is going to work for every employer. You just have to find out what works best for you and your employee group. And then the last component that I can recommend is be intentional. Be very intentional, you know, with your veterans and taking that time to sit down and, like Kara had mentioned, even if they're just staring at you, you know, to figure out, okay, what do you like? What don't you like? Where are you going to thrive at? One of our operations managers is a veteran, and he will sit down with me and we'll go over with our current veterans where they're at, especially if the individual's struggling in some capacity out there on a job site, or if they're doing amazing, and sitting down with the individual saying, hey, you know, we can definitely see you moving into a supervisory role. And just with any employee, veteran or non-veteran, asking what they want. Because some people don't want to manage. Maybe they managed all those years, as Kara had mentioned, and they don't want to do that anymore. And they want to do something else. And they have no problem, jamming bars under the paver all day. They're cool with that, because they don't want to manage anybody anymore. Or maybe they do. So the last piece that, like I said, be intentional with your program and making sure that you're having those conversations and that dedication. And Kara talked about earlier too, building that trust. Once they build that trust in you, they're forever, loyal and dedicated to you, and know that they can come to you with anything that they have going on. And that will help, with that retention and that long-term dedication from them.
That was great advice. I should have gone first. I'm going to start with that because I agree with most of the things you said. Actually, I agree with all of them. Most of them were my talking points as well. So that's wonderful. What I would add to that is similar to what Christina said. It's not about trying hard. It's about being intentional about your efforts, right? I mean, that I can't say that, more. And I think learning how to find your vets is hard. And that tells you a lot about where you are on this spectrum, right? Where you exist to your veterans. If you can't find your veterans, that means they don't feel comfortable telling you they're a veteran, right? So that's a big deal right there. So find your veterans, see what you can do to change that. Every veteran has raised their hand, right? They have volunteered. They may not want to volunteer for you, but they will probably give you feedback to help other veterans in your organization, right? So sometimes it's not about asking them to stand up and do something. It's to provide some feedback and some advice to you. I will also say, be real and be honest with this population. They are a no-nonsense population. They are a very direct group. They are also a very respectful group. Be prepared that they won't ask you questions, right? And that they are afraid if you give what you think is going to happen, like I think we should do X and we should do it in this route. They'll say, that's a wonderful idea, ma'am. And then you ask them for their feedback. They'll say, I think your idea was wonderful, ma'am. What you need to do is give them an environment that they can provide you ideas and feedback and ask them questions. I know Christina also said that. Don't be afraid to ask them questions. I never served in the military. Half the jokes I hear in my vet center, I laugh at because I get. And it's because I've been lucky enough over the years to be part of their group. But, when I say be real and be honest, be yourself. Don't be somebody you think you need to be at work or at your job. Tell them how you really feel. If you think what they're going through sucks, say, man, that sucks. If that's your voice and your language, just do it. That's one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you when you're working with vets. And then once you feel you built something and it looks beautiful, realize you're not done. You're really just getting started, and your vets are now going to help you to go where you need to go. And know that there's a network behind you, and that trust we keep bringing up. That relationship building is so important, and that network and that connection to one another is so beautiful. Now you need to help learn how to support that population. You need to figure out what you need to help them help themselves, right? Whether that is they want to give back, as Christina said, which is so common, then maybe there's an organization in your neighborhood or that, you guys can look at selecting to give back to. Maybe you'll all go paint a fence together. I don't know. Maybe you'll all, take vets out to dinner. I don't know what that looks like for you, but your vets will have some ideas. You might need to help them come there. But become a part of the network, become a part of their solution, right? So if you don't know how to do that, like I said, I will help anybody to serve a veteran. Macomb Community College will help you. If I'm not here, one of my staff will be here to help you figure out who that right person is. But MVAA is great. 1-800-MISHVET is great as a phone number. If you don't know, they will. If you have a veteran in crisis, send them to that number. If you don't know what to do, send them to that number. They will never let a veteran down, which has been phenomenal. So I think we've said a lot. I have lots more advice, but I think we'll see what the questions are before we go into more of that.
Yeah, this was excellent. Thank you both. We're starting to get some questions. Before we move into those questions, I just want to call out the chat because a lot of people have introduced themselves who are coming from really great organizations that can provide some resources. So take a look, make some connections while you are here. Also, Ajax is getting some shout outs for the good work that you're doing. So I just want to make sure, Christina, I don't know if you're looking at the chat while you're talking, but I want to make sure you know that.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So,
Thank you, everybody.
So thanks for all of your engagement in the chat. The first question we got was in the question box. So I'm going to read, I don't think folks can see it, but it's about recruitment. So where should we be posting job opportunities to attract more veterans to apply? Is there any specific language we should include in posting or advertising positions to make it clear that we really want veterans to apply? Which is, I think, a great question. So thank you, Jordan.
For applying, I know on our website, we definitely have our designation out there. We also, on a lot of our promotional materials, even just having simply our flag on certain corners of it, but also just putting it out there that we're veteran friendly. In your job postings, you know, veterans highly recommended to apply and things of that nature, but also getting those job postings and ads to where the veterans are going to see them. Having it on your website and on some other items, social media and things of that nature. But if they're not initially following you because they're not 100% sure where to even start, going to them and, you know, working with your other partners too, and putting that type of campaign together as much, you know, anytime you go recruiting, you develop either a campaign or a marketing brand that you want to go after, brand it to them. You know, they're not going to, veterans aren't necessarily going to approach me, right? You know, and if I'm at an event in a business suit or something like that, but they're going to approach one of my guys that are, you know, just coming off the job, that have been driving with us and things like that of that nature. So understand the demographic that you're talking to as well, to make them feel more comfortable to open up. Now, when I throw on my work boots and safety vest and hard hat, it's not a problem. They feel a little bit more comfortable with that too as well. So when it comes to recruiting and attracting them, I would say the first place to start is going to them first, and then making sure you have veteran friendly, you know, posted on promotional materials or your website or whatever the case may be. I would recommend those would be the first two that I would say to start with.
If I could add to that, I would also say, not being an employer, but while it sometimes is tricky, there is a phenomenal pool in higher education of veterans. Most of the schools are pushing their veterans to look at Pure Michigan, the Michigan Talent. I could share that out. But we're pushing, you know, them to actually put their resumes out in that realm. And then many of the schools also are having, within our own career services, we have a way that a veteran can choose to say, yes, I'm a veteran, where you as employers can see it. So the part that stinks about, you know, looking at schools is that each school has their own system that they use for resumes and things like that. So maybe pick some, you know, local to you or ones that you have relationships with. Make sure you're posting your jobs there. Make sure if you have events that your organization does. Michigan Veteran Affairs Agency has a calendar up on their website. If you're looking for events in your area, oh my goodness, Michigan Veteran Affairs Agency has a calendar up on their website. So, you know, there are people that I wouldn't think would check that calendar are telling me about events I didn't know because I'm not checking the calendar enough. So post your things there and check it. Those are some of the things I would add when you're thinking about this type of work.
Thank you. Next question, I think, is a bit more general. Will there be other webinars you will be hosting in the future? On this topic, if we can go deeper into a subject area, if there's more you want to know, I don't want to speak for our panelists, but I would be open to convening another one of these. The Chamber more generally does offer a series of webinars focused on issues in education and talent. We are developing our calendar for this new year, and so I will make sure that we share that with you because we cover a variety of things related to these subjects. So hopefully we'll see you at a future webinar. Next question. We've touched on some of this, but how do you recommend an employer start a veteran strategy? And what are some resources that you recommend? I know you talked about a few resources, but any more detail you have on that would be great.
So to start, I would say understanding what your employee need is would start there. So based on what skill set you're looking for, and then from there, that MVAA website has a dedicated section for employers for exactly what are you looking to do? Are you looking to attract the talent, retain the talent, or do your employees have outside needs? So I guess the first thing is looking at what you need skill set wide internally. And then if you already have that veteran base, MVA has a great for either external or internal support with that. So I can dive a lot deeper into that, but I think if you're looking to just start, I would start there.
All right, I don't see any more questions. I'm gonna put out a last call. And while if you are furiously typing, I'll just remind everybody, this is being recorded. We will send a follow-up email shortly after this event with the recording and with links to some of the resources that Christina and Kara mentioned during the call. So we'll follow up and make sure you have the information that was covered. And I know somebody asked for the 800 number that Kara mentioned, and I see that she put it in the chat. So there's a resource right there. I don't see any more questions. So Kara and Christina, I guess any final thoughts, anything you want to close with? You've said so much wonderful things, but I'll give you the floor one more time.
I'll let Kara go. I feel like I kept taking it over. So if you want to start out.
I'm just kidding. I would say that it takes a village, right? We hear that kind of phrase a lot. And don't be afraid of a veteran. And I don't mean that in a joke. Like, don't be afraid just because they have a different background than you. Don't be afraid to tell them you don't know what you don't know, right? Don't be afraid to find out what they need and then take a moment and be honest and say, I don't know that answer, but I have a network. Like, let me go post that out and see what I can do. And then my other advice would be part of a network. In Michigan, we do some phenomenal things. I might be a little bit biased, but it's what helped me when I first started was the Region 10. So it's a prosperity region in Michigan. We changed the name, became the Motor City Veteran Community Action Team. We are a group of volunteers. Some of us are vets, some of us are not. And we work with those like us in this room, right? We work together to figure out what we need, right? Period. I need a resource for food. I mean, one of the best examples I can give is food pantries were closing when COVID happened. And one of the biggest needs, which is not normally a need, most people can feed a veteran. That's normally not a problem. That was a big need we had. And those resource groups really helped engage the state and really get us, $100 gift cards we could actually give to folks during that time. So there are so many resources out there. And we talk about resources and we use that word a lot, but some of the things I mean, there are free emergency funds that are at the state level that are funded forever for a veteran who has a crisis. There are county funds as well. There's a free financial coach for veterans in the state of Michigan. No strings attached. She's phenomenal. There's so many things like that. When I say we don't know what we don't know, I really mean that. So, go make some friends. And you have 3 right now that are on screen here that will connect you behind the scenes if you don't know what to do next.
Carol, while you're speaking, we did get another question for you. Can you talk about Red Shirt Friday?
Oh, I'm not as familiar with that. So I do know that, we didn't, I'm going to be honest, we didn't participate in that as much. My student population isn't a bunch of joiners here at Macomb. So I do know a little bit about it, but somebody from the audience might actually know more. Red Shirt Fridays was an initiative. I really don't know who started it. It was an initiative where people would show that camaraderie, right? They would get together and it would be, everybody would wear a red shirt to support this cause. But again, it's not something that I took a big part in. So I'm sorry, I can't speak on that.
Mr. Arnold, can I put you on the spot? Do you want to come off mute and share more?
Karen knows I got a big mouth, so of course. This was originated back in 2005 by a Marine family And Remember Everyone Deployed stands for just caring for your military. And veterans are probably the strongest supporters of those who are still on active duty. And let's face it, it's Thursday today. I'm looking forward to a wonderful weekend. Hopefully a Lions win. But somewhere in this world, somebody's on watch, somebody's on duty. And so that's why Red Shirt Friday was developed, to remember everyone deployed. And I used to work for an employer. Oh my goodness. There wasn't many veterans of us there, but everybody got into the spirit of red shirts on Friday. So it was kind of a veteran thing. The t-shirt said Red Shirt Friday. It's a military thing. So it's just a cool, fun, inexpensive way to promote the military and our veterans.
That's
Thank
great,
you for
Jeff.
sharing that. That's a
Yeah,
great way for everybody to get involved. So thank you. That's great. Christina, I don't see any more questions, so I will let you close us out.
So again, thank you everybody for your time this morning. Again, from the employer side of things, when it's looking at veterans and what you need as a skill set, understanding their work ethic and their commitment to what they have in front of them. So their mission or their goal, and, approaching everything in that fashion is that what is their next mission? What are they going to be doing? So I love the fact that Kara spoke about, their career change. They're not looking at it as a career change and helping them refocus. Coming out of the military, I know, especially with my husband, he had a hard time deciding what he wanted to do. He was so used to stepping into a role and being told, this is where you're going, this is what you're doing, this is the mission, this is the goal at hand. So helping them get some of the independence back a little bit too as well, but helping provide that focus. And going back to the 3 items that we mentioned earlier, which was time, that team mentality, and that intentional piece, and having those conversations with your veterans internally and externally to just provide that support. Again, everybody's connected to a veteran somewhere, even if it's not in your family. You have a friend, you have a coworker, something like that, and that's something that everybody can team up and rally around, and it's near and dear to all of us in some fashion. So trying to get at those heartstrings, and make sure that everybody understands that just as much as the veterans gave for us and like to give back to one another, we can take that time to give back to them too as well.
Thank you, Christina and Kara. Thank you for your time and expertise this morning. Thank you to our attendees for joining us on a busy Thursday. Thanks for your questions and your engagement. I will capture everything that has been shared in the chat to make sure those resources are included in the follow-up, and then Christina and Kara will send over some links as well. So look for an email with links and a recording, and hopefully everything you need to get started. If you have questions, you'll have my contact info as part of the follow-up. I can make sure you get connected to the right people and be the sort of, what's the phone operator for any questions that you have. So thank you. Appreciate everyone's time, and go Lions. Bye.
Go Lions. Bye, everybody. Have a good day.
thank you. Take care.